Hey, Trevor Elio here with Julie Stern's Learning Transfer Team. And today I'm going to walk you through my English language arts sample of our online learning templates. Let's jump into it. So as you can see, what we have here is sort of a one-stop shop for instructional design. All of the different parts of the planning process, as well as some of the delivery mechanisms that you're going to provide for your students, are all present here. Over the last few weeks, there have been an amazing deluge of tools, strategies, resources, and plans shared. And what we kind of wanted to do was design a quality of life framework where teachers can store all of those different things in a sort of visually orienting format, both for them and their students. So you're not having to click through a bunch of different tabs and browsers, open and close things. As you can see, we have a lot of hyperlinked things here. So whether it's a tool that you want your students to use, a website you want them to go to, a text you want them to access, all of it can be navigated to just on this document. So for my planning process for this unit, I started with learning outcomes and standards of focus. So it's always important that we have sort of a direction that we're going to kind of help orient students in terms of their goals. So then I, based on those standards, created some conceptual questions. So I think 1 to 3 is probably a good rule of thumb. We don't want to overwhelm students. And I created those questions by picking out concepts and standards that I felt like needed to be explored. And putting them into sort of an essential question format. So my 3 questions are: how do a speaker's appeals to logic, emotion, and credibility affect the effectiveness of an argument? How do a speaker's choices, appeals, and tone impact their argument? And how do the speaker, purpose, audience, context, and exigence impact an argument? So as you can see, even though I'm looking at this idea of persuasion and argumentation from a variety of different angles, I'm really just focusing on argumentation. I think it's important to have a pretty clear and cohesive goal where my students get, this is all about persuasive texts, how they are constructed, and then how they are received and perceived by the audience. So it's not really too broad of a brush, even though we are looking at argument from a lot of different angles. It's a depth over breadth situation. So I also have a place where I am tracking evidence of learning. It's important that these sort of bite-sized units have a lot of conversation between teacher and student, whether that's actual conversation via Zoom or just conversation in a more informal means through formative assessment. It's really important that we're tracking student understanding as we move through this and not just sort of throwing them a big learning task and revisiting it a few weeks later. So we've divided up our learning experiences. These are like the things that your students are actually going to do as you move through the unit in early in the week, midweek, and end of the week. For us, it was important to not be overly prescriptive. We didn't want to have like a sort of a daily schedule, but we felt like it was important to chunk these learning experiences to help students sort of figure out where they are and where they're going. So early in the week, it's a really big focus on helping students establish a surface level understanding of the concepts within the unit. And there are a bunch of different ways you could do that. I have some slides that I'm going to present over Zoom where I'm using some direct instruction strategies, some conversation with students about examples. And we're just kind of talking and looking at the different examples of those concepts and having a discussion about some of their features. If you want students to take a little bit more ownership, you can do something like a concept sort. My teammate Kayla Duncan has designed some awesome digital versions of strategies detailed in Julie Stern's book, Tools for Teaching Conceptual Understanding. And this is sort of inductive thinking where students are looking at critical attributes of each of these concepts in order to get a solid understanding of them. So after students get this surface level understanding of concepts, we move on to some of the midweek instruction where it's about giving students a context, asking them a conceptual question, and then helping them sort of create some conceptual relationship statements where they're looking at how a speaker's choices, appeals, and tone impact the arguments in, for example, Lou Gehrig's Farewell to Baseball speech. So after they read that, they look at this template, they complete it, and that's a formative check for me to make sure that students are understanding. And then after that, how do the speaker, purpose, audience, and context impact an argument? And they're looking at Barack Obama's 2004 DNC keynote. And again, they're going to fill out the choices, appeals, and tone. So I'm posing this conceptual question, I'm giving students a context that they can explore it, and I'm giving them a pretty straightforward document where they're tracking their understanding. It's not a fill-in-the-blank worksheet, but it's also not just a blank page. It's a nice sort of graphic organizer that will help orient them. And then finally, at the end of the week, students are going to have to take their understanding of all of these concepts and how they work together and apply it with doing a rhetorical analysis of George Bush's 9/11 speech. So again, it's a template and a format that they're familiar and comfortable with at this point because they've done it a few times, and they're applying all of the feedback that I've provided them and seeing how all of these different concepts impact the way that an argument is delivered, perceived, and received. So after that, they complete a bolt template. So it's important that students aren't just performing a task, but they're creating or constructing sort of a conceptual relationship statement, a generalization, sort of some principles that they can use to understand not just this one persuasive text, but multiple persuasive texts. So this is a way for them to sort of design a concept map and articulate the relationship between and amongst concepts when it comes to persuasion. So the fun kicks in where students are looking at real world connection. It's not enough for us to just have students sort of complete these learning tasks. We want them to integrate this knowledge into their lived experiences. Before we left for the COVID-induced break, my students were talking about how these principles and generalizations would help them analyze, their favorite YouTubers' video series or their favorite media outlets when they write an article. And this would be a great opportunity to maybe launch a mini project-based learning unit where students are creating video essays or any kind of sort of creative digital media where they're performing a rhetorical analysis using their understanding of these concepts. And it's just a great way for students to see that this isn't just about completing tasks that are being assigned online, but it's about gaining knowledge that can help them navigate the media landscape that we're in now. So that's it for my sort of behind the scenes unit planning. If you have more questions, check out our website at edtosavetheworld.com. I'm Trevor Elio. Talk soon.